Buffalo's $2.1 billion monster is open, and the NFL will never be the same. All right, folks, buckle up. Because what we are about to walk you through today is not just a stadium opening story. This is a love story, a legacy story, a story about a fan base so ferociously devoted that they literally cried watching a building get torn down, then turned right around and funded the replacement with $250 million of their own money. This is the story of the brand new Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. The most talked about, most anticipated, most jaw-dropping football cathedral ever constructed in the state of New York, and arguably one of the most ambitious stadium projects in the entire history of the NFL, and it just officially opened its doors. So if you are a Bills fan, a football fan, or just someone who appreciates watching humans do truly extraordinary things, you are in exactly the right place. Let's start at the very beginning, because this story didn't start with a groundbreaking ceremony and a bunch of suits holding golden shovels. This story started with heartbreak. It started with the fans of Buffalo, New York, Bills Mafia, as they are fiercely and lovingly known, standing outside the old Highmark Stadium and watching over half a century of memories get demolished brick by brick. People were wiping tears in the parking lot. Grown men, guys who have probably watched their team lose 4 consecutive Super Bowls without flinching, were getting emotional just watching a building come down. And you know what? That tells you everything you need to know about what football means in Buffalo. It isn't a sport there. It is a religion. And the old stadium was their church. The original stadium, the one that first opened its gates all the way back in 1973, had been the home of the Buffalo Bills for over 50 years. 50 years of playoff heartbreaks and miraculous comebacks. 50 years of tailgates and sub-zero temperatures. 50 years of fans doing things in parking lots that we absolutely cannot describe on a family-friendly YouTube channel. That stadium held generations. Grandparents brought their kids there. Those kids brought their kids. And now those grandkids are grown adults who got choked up watching wrecking crews dismantle the place where they first heard a crowd roar. One person described it perfectly. Watching it come down felt exactly like watching someone demolish the house you grew up in. You know it has to happen. You know something better is coming. But that doesn't make it any less painful in the moment. The old stadium had been the home of Buffalo football since 1973, closing at the end of the 2025 NFL season News 4. And the Bills went out in absolute style, by the way, smashing the New York Jets 35-8 in the final game ever played there. A fitting farewell. A statement. Buffalo doesn't leave quietly. But here is where the story shifts from bittersweet to absolutely electric, because while one building was coming down, something monstrous was rising just across the street. Something that was going to make every single tear shed for the old stadium feel completely and totally worth it. The new Highmark Stadium, the only NFL stadium in the entire state of New York, is a $2.1 billion beast. It is more than 1 million square feet of pure architectural ambition, with roughly 60,000 seats. And the Bills fans themselves, Bills Mafia, contributed $263 million through personal seat license purchases to help make this thing a reality. Read that again. The fans. The regular people who paint their faces and jump through folding tables and freezing parking lots. They put in $263 million. Terry Pegula himself acknowledged it at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, saying point-blank that the Bills' front office does not take that commitment lightly. And when you see what those fans got in return, you will understand why even the most skeptical accountant in the room would call that money well spent. Now let's talk about what this building actually is, because the numbers alone don't do it justice. It took approximately 210,000 bolts to connect some 21,000 pieces of structural steel. The heaviest single steel piece came in at 80,000 pounds. Over the 3-year construction period, roughly 10,000 union tradespeople contributed to the project, logging a staggering 6.2 million hours of labor. 6.2 million hours. That is not a building. That is a monument. That is Buffalo permanently announcing to the rest of the NFL and the rest of the world that this city is here, this franchise is here, and they are not going anywhere. Let's talk design, because this is where it gets truly wild. When the architects and ownership sat down to figure out what this stadium was going to look and feel like, they didn't just Google cool stadium ideas and copy somebody else's homework. They went deep into Buffalo's own identity. They looked at iconic local buildings like the Buffalo Auditorium and Kleinhans Music Hall. They studied the colonnades, the architectural character of the city, and they asked themselves a very specific question. How do we build something that is unmistakably Buffalo? And the answer they landed on is genuinely brilliant. The exterior of the stadium is wrapped in perforated, louvered metal panels. And hidden within those panels, if you look closely enough, is the Buffalo Bills' iconic charge logo. The same lightning bolt symbol that represents this team's identity is literally baked into the skin of the building. Now that alone would be pretty cool, right? But here is the genius part. Those perforated panels are not just decorative. They are functional. They are engineering. Because one of the biggest challenges in designing a Buffalo stadium has always been the weather. Anyone who has ever watched a Bills game in December knows exactly what we are talking about. The wind comes screaming off Lake Erie like it has a personal grudge against everyone sitting in the upper deck. The design team spent enormous time and energy on what they called designing for December. Through extensive wind analysis and modeling, they figured out that by perforating the building's skin, they could actually confuse the wind. The technical term they use is wind confusion, and we are not making that up. Air comes off the lake, hits the stadium, and most of it flows around or over the building. But the perforations allow some air to pass through in a controlled way, which reduces the negative pressure that would otherwise create those brutal, swirling gusts you get inside open-air stadiums. The result? Wind speeds inside the new Highmark Stadium are roughly half of what they are outside the building. If you were sitting in there on a 20 or 30 mile per hour wind day, you were feeling 10 to 15 miles per hour inside, and even less down on the field level. In Buffalo, in December, that is not a small thing. That is a game changer. That is the difference between a miserable experience and an incredible one. And speaking of the field, let's talk about what is down there on that playing surface, because even the grass at this stadium is a story. The Bills' ownership went in with a clear philosophy: natural grass, open air, played in the elements. As they put it, football was meant to be played on natural grass in the environment. They have always played football outside in Buffalo, and that is exactly how they are going to keep playing it. No dome. No artificial turf. The real thing. And they went to extraordinary lengths to make sure that natural grass could survive and thrive in a Buffalo climate, with heated tubing beneath the surface to help the grass grow through the harsher months, irrigation systems, grow lights, and an entire seasonal management strategy that involved actually letting the grass go dormant over winter to help it come back stronger in spring. Every system, field heat, snow melt under the track, irrigation, was tested before a single game ever got played there. That is the level of obsession that went into this building. Now, let's talk about the fan experience. Because you can build the most beautiful stadium on earth, but if the fans inside it are having a mediocre time, you have failed. And from everything we know about this building, mediocre is approximately the last word anyone is using. The entire concourse system was designed from the ground up with one core principle in mind. No matter where you are in this stadium, you are always connected to the game. The main concourse sits at grade level, meaning the floor you walk in on when you scan your ticket is the same floor as the main concourse. You do not have to go up escalators or navigate ramps just to reach the action. You walk in, and you are there. And the concourses themselves run a full 360 degrees around the building, with open sight lines into the stadium bowl at every point. That means you could be in line getting a hot dog, hear the crowd explode, spin around, and watch a 40-yard touchdown pass in real time. You miss nothing. You are always part of the moment. Nearly 2/3 of the stadium seats are covered by a massive canopy roof. a cantilevered structure that the design team described as the perfect compromise between an open-air stadium and a dome. Fans who love being in the elements can still feel the Buffalo sky above them, while fans in covered sections stay dry whether it is raining or snowing. The canopy itself is a marvel of engineering, with a V-shaped structural profile specifically chosen to concentrate the forces of the canopy down through one central point. And it comes equipped with a sophisticated snowmelt system to keep that roof clear through the worst of what Buffalo winters can throw at it. Sit under that canopy on a December night with snow swirling just beyond the edge of the roof, and you have one of the most unique atmospheric experiences in all of American sports. Let's talk video boards. Because in the modern NFL, the scoreboard arms race has gotten completely out of control. Stadiums like Dallas's AT&T Stadium and SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles have turned their video boards into essentially medium-sized buildings. And the Bills' ownership made a deliberate, thoughtful choice not to chase that particular game. They were not focused on beating Dallas. They were not trying to outscreen SoFi. Instead, they focused on getting the right amount of video for this specific stadium, for this specific fan experience. What they ended up with is two main video boards with a pixel pitch of 8mm, down from 16mm at the old venue, which essentially doubles the sharpness, contrast, and clarity of the image. Fans who have seen them describe the picture as so crisp and detailed that you almost cannot believe it is a video board and not a giant window. Add to that a massive 9-foot-tall jumbo ribbon board running around the stadium, plus traditional ribbon boards and lower subboards at multiple levels, and you have a visual feast that enhances the game without overwhelming it. But if the visual experience is a feast, the audio experience is something else entirely. Something that might just be the single most impressive technical achievement in this entire $2 billion project. The ownership came in with a mandate that they wanted the best sound system in the entire country. Not one of the best. The best. And from what has come out of the commissioning and testing phase, they may have delivered exactly that. The system runs on 750,000 watts of power. 750,000. There are 32 speaker arrays positioned throughout the building, each one individually addressable as its own IP address on the network, allowing the audio engineers to move sound spatially around the stadium in real time. The audio design engineer working on the system described being in the concourse during testing and hearing a single speaker array on the field playing music, and it sounding like an actual concert was happening inside. The entire system is tuned to within 1 decibel of uniform loudness throughout the bowl, meaning the sound is not just loud, it is precise. And when that kick drum hits on game day, you will feel it in your chest. They confirmed it themselves. More bass than any other building in the country. Now add to all of that the lighting system, which allows the game lights to be individually controlled and sequenced, turning the entire stadium into a programmable canvas. Different lighting schemes for touchdowns. Different schemes for field goals. Different schemes for player introductions. The lights can chase each other across the canopy, pulse in time with music, or split from north to south in dramatic sweeping patterns. Combined with the audio system, what you have is not just a football game, it is a full sensory event. A production. An experience that the people behind it describe as elevating a football game from something you watch to something you feel in your bones. And the players themselves are not being forgotten in all of this. The locker room alone is reportedly unlike anything that exists in professional sports right now. The design centered around a single artistic concept, hands together, and from that idea emerged a locker structure that links every single stall together in one unified flowing form. The lighting in the locker room is fully programmable and can shift colors, Bills blue, all white for white jerseys, whatever the situation calls for. It is described by everyone who has walked through it as genuinely breathtaking. Not nice for a locker room breathtaking, just breathtaking, full stop. And attached directly to the locker room is an indoor practice facility that may be a first of its kind in NFL history. A full practice area where players can warm up without ever stepping outside in the elements. Hot plunge, cold plunge, strength and conditioning equipment, modality rooms. all connected, all under one roof, all steps away from where those players gear up on game day. The ribbon-cutting ceremony brought together Bills owner Terry Pegula, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz, and Mary Wilson, widow of the Bills founder Ralph Wilson. And it was Wilson's words that perhaps landed the most powerfully. She talked about how blessed this community was first to have Ralph Wilson come here, and how blessed they are now to have Terry and Kim Pegula carrying that legacy forward. That continuity, from Ralph Wilson to the Pegulas, from one generation of Bills Mafia to the next, is what gives this building its emotional weight. It is not just concrete and steel and perforated metal panels. It is a living continuation of a story that started in 1960 when the Buffalo Bills were born, and that shows absolutely no signs of ending. And the NFL has already taken notice. In October 2025, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman committed to a future Winter Classic being held at the new Highmark Stadium, with a non-binding target of the 2028 Winter Classic to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the original Ice Bowl held at the previous venue. A Winter Classic in Buffalo. At this stadium. With that sound system and those lights, that might be one of the greatest sporting events of the decade. The first regular season game at the new Highmark Stadium is set for September 17th, 2026, against the Detroit Lions. And if you think 60,000 people are going to walk through those gates, see that green field for the first time from inside the bowl, hear that sound system fire up, feel that bass in their chest, and not completely lose their minds, then you have never been to Buffalo and you have never understood what Bills Mafia truly is. One person involved in the project put it in a way that stopped us cold. They said the emotions they felt walking onto that field for the first time are exactly the emotions that the fans are going to feel when they walk into that building. And they said it simply, without drama, it is a place that is special. And they are just glad to be part of it. That is what $2 billion, 4 years
A wide
of
receiver
work,
who stands 6 feet 6 inches
6.2 million
tall,
hours of labor,
weighs
and
231
the prayers of an
pounds,
city
and
look
moves
like
with a
when they come
combination of
together.
size and body control you almost
That is
never see
Highmark
at the
Stadium.
position. A guy who was an
That is
essential piece
Buffalo.
of the Super Bowl Lex championship
That is
run.
Bills football. So whether you are Bills Mafia, already counting down the days until September, or you are a fan of some other team who just watched this video with your jaw somewhere on the floor wondering why your franchise cannot build something like this, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment down below.